Yay! Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast Launch for Small Businesses webinar. I'm so excited to see people already chatting in the chat room. That is what it's for, to talk to each other as well as to ask questions of me. All right, so this is the Starting a Small Business podcast webinar, Maximize the Impact from the Beginning. It's going to be different than what you're thinking. By the end of this webinar, you will get these things: an outline of setup decisions that build a solid foundation for your business podcast, a list of what tech to use for a simple podcast setup, a basic marketing plan specifically for small business owners, how you can repurpose your episodes, your podcast ROI assessment. What I do: I'm a podcast editor and marketer. I'm in the Venn diagram of where those overlap. And if I move like this, it's because I've got an Instagram Live over here for the first 10 minutes. So I kind of do both because my clients needed more than just to make the audio smooth and the content better. They needed more outreach. And I love doing that. I do it for my own stuff. So I do it for them as well. My podcasting superpowers, and I'll make this super quick because I'd rather talk about the content than about me, but it's important you know where the content comes from. I constantly experiment. I have an insane drive to share. I'm super chatty in many ways, in audio, video, and text, images, you name it. All of that adds up to so many things that I've done over the past 7 years. For 2 years, I led an event with a hashtag over on Twitter. And we got quite a bit of traction on that. It was called Pod Rev Day, Podcast Review Day. I also created, hosted, produced, you name it, global podcast editors over on YouTube. And we did a lot of panels of like 4 editors talking about our challenges. It went on for quite a while, and there are still people watching it, which is awesome. If you want the geeky side of all of this, go over to Global Podcast Editors. I also just recently started to help the Sound Sorceresses magazine with a newsletter where we're doing bits of teasers and things leading up to the October 1st magazine. And so I'm helping them with the newsletter because, like Coffee Like Media 360 marketing suggests, podcasting is the heart of what I do, but I also use newsletters and YouTube articles, blog posts, literally anything that is needed to get the message to the right people and connect the right people. I also have Geopat Podcast, which has had about a gazillion names since I started it 7 years ago. And the thing I love about this chart is that that big spike at the end, that's just from me purposing. I haven't actually put out an episode since May of this year. So there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot I have done, and I like to experiment so you don't have to. Okay, and Paul, who's in the chat room, these are his stats for launching the Not Boring Small Business Bookkeeping and Accounting podcast in the past 3 months. That's what we've been able to do with his podcast. How this helps you: you can benefit from my experimentation without doing any of the work. You can get ideas for your own from my examples. And again, that 360 marketing leaves no stone unturned. You really want to meet people where they are. If they like reading, have text for them. If they like videos, have videos, and so on and so forth. Setup decisions. Dun, 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 dun. This is the longest bit, folks, because this is important. Here's the thing. Most people start by creating the podcast and then doing the marketing or sharing or promotions or whatever the hell you want to call it. Whatever you do to have the right people listen and then move through from your podcast to your business, that part is usually done last, which is absolutely the wrong way to do it. And I'll talk about this a lot more later. But what I like to do and what we're going to do in this session is we're going to talk about doing the planning and the marketing together as you're creating your podcast. So it's not an afterthought. How you connect with the right people, it matters from the beginning. And again, I've got all kinds of ideas on this. So let's get to it. Decision number 1 is your why, your podcast why, as I like to call it. What's the main thing that you want the business podcast to do for your business? Do you want to network with leaders in your field? Do you want to generate business leads? I do. Do you want to create 24/7 content outreach or outreach content? Same thing. Don't get caught up in what your listeners are going to do with your content. You can think about that later. You can plan it a little bit later if you need to. But right now, at the beginning, before the beginning, while you're in that germination stage, think about what you want it to do for your business. The glasses have come off, folks. You're not just hobby podcasting. You are using this as a marketing tool. Sometimes when I'm talking to people who want a podcast for their business, I can tell it blows their mind that I say that podcast is marketing. Because they say, well, what marketing should I do for the podcast? And I'm like, well, your podcast is marketing. We can repurpose it in a whole bunch of different ways. And man, do I love doing that. But your podcast is marketing. It should have a goal similar to any marketing efforts, it should have a goal. And we are definitely going to talk about that. All of the decisions that you make with your podcast that are on the screen right now, your podcast name, your art, your music, all of it is dependent on what you want people to do when they listen. What do you want your ideal listeners / clients to do when they listen? All of the decisions are based on that. So it's really important to spend time marinating in what you want them to do. What is your goal with this business podcast? I also want you, I love this picture. The waitress, when this happened, I have a picture for the Instagram folks. I have a picture of coffee cup that just spilled over. The waitress put it down, it spilled. She was horrified and she ran to go get something to clean it up. And I just thought it was beautiful. So I just took out my camera and started taking pictures. And that's the thing. Everything is changeable. She changed the table. She wiped it up and she brought me a new coffee. And that was great. And I got a great picture out of it. Everything is changeable except your RSS feed. Don't ever change that because you'll lose the people that are following you. But every single aspect outside of that is changeable. Decision 2 is your podcast format. Okay, this is really, really important. For a business podcast specifically, what is your goal? Do you want to just network and get FaceTime with important people or people you want to know in your field? Or do you want people your listeners to view you as the expert, the absolute positive expert of your field? Well, those are different things and they could affect your format. I've got 3 examples on the screen right now. Mary Chan is the host of the first one on the left, and she does, I don't know specifically, I've never actually asked her. I think it's a lead magnet, but she does a lot of networking also. It seems like she has experts on there and does stuff with them. So I want to say she's more, if these 3 are in a decline from networking for Mary in the purple, the podcaster's guide to a visible voice, over to Josh at the I Want to Know podcast. Then Josh is the expert positioning, the most extreme expert positioning, although he does do some networking too. And Andrea from Savvy Social Podcast is in between, where she goes back and forth between her expert positioning episodes where she's like showing like stats, she does marketing and she's showing stats and knowledge of what's happening and what's changed and all that kind of stuff. She had an amazing episode the other day on Instagram Reels that really made me rethink Instagram, thus doing that live at the beginning 10 minutes. So there's no, how do I say this? There's no one, like it's not black or white, right? There's definitely, like I said, a decline on this, but the more you hone in on what you want your exact goal to be, the more you can shape your content, your messaging, even your logo, at least really everything, to lean in that direction. So that is an important thing to decide at the beginning. Decision 3, episode publication schedule. I used to publish every week, and I used to get really stressed out about not publishing every week. But I didn't start with the business podcast. I started on the indie podcast side. And I had 1 podcast, then I had 3 podcasts. And at one point, I think I had 8 of my own. They were similar to each other, but they were different enough that I felt that they needed their own RSS feed. Secret, they didn't. So, but yeah, I just, and I started to stress myself out. And then I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I want to do an experiment as I do. And I did less frequent consistencies. And I did seasons, and I took entire months off between seasons, and people came back. And I thought, oh, okay. So you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to do a season. You don't even have to do a podcast forever. There are people that do limited run podcasts. You could do a limited run podcast. You could do 10 episodes of evergreen content, put it up, have it on your website, keep repurposing it on your newsletter, in all of your channels, just keep repurposing it. Do you know how much material is in 10 episodes? You can repurpose that for years. And people would not get sick of it because new people would be finding it all the time. So you do not have to do weekly podcast episodes. Weekly is mostly important if you have sponsors for each episode and they are paying you to make the episodes. Most small business podcasts are not for that purpose, and I'll talk about that again later. So please pick a rhythm that fits your business because it's supporting your business. So it should support your business, not take you away from it. Take breaks, use replays, swap feeds, and do all kinds of things. Decision 4. Use clear CTAs. Oh, I love talking about call to actions. Calls to action. Love it, love it, love it. You have to tell your listeners what you want them to do. I would mic drop, but I kind of need this one. So we can't do that. I have an entire episode on the Coffee Like Media podcast, which is just rebranded from the Podcast to Connect podcast because I like rebranding things when it makes more sense. It's called Tell Your Solopreneur Podcast Listeners What You Want from Them. So if you want more details on how to do clear CTAs, go into that podcast episode. I also have an example here for you because I am all about specifics. And this is it's not taken from any one person, otherwise I would have put a name here, but it's something I've done and it's something I've heard other people do, and I love the specificity of it, even if the word specificity is not easy. Please take a screenshot of the episode on your phone podcast app and post it on social media. Tell people what you heard and why it hit you so hard. We appreciate this so much. How clear is that? They don't even have to try to go into Apple Podcasts, which for people like me that have Androids, impossible. They don't have to go onto any new site. They just literally have to screenshot, which some people might not know how to do, but a lot of people do know how to do. And then they just post that wherever they want to share it. Talk about specific and flexible call to action. If you want them to go to your website, say your website name, have it in the show notes. Be very clear and have your CTA early. Do not have it at the end of your episode. The stats show that most people don't make it past like 60, 70, 80% of your episode. So have it in the beginning or have it in the mid-roll. Dynamic ad insertion is beautiful for announcements. Decision 5, marketing. This is a placeholder because I want you to know that this is a decision you need to make early. But I don't want to go into specifics yet because that is an entire section of this webinar. Part 3 is entirely marketing, sharing, promotions, whatever you want to call it. Decision 6, set your return on investment, set your ROIs. I remember somebody asked me super early on in my business. I was still in the am I a business, am I not a business thing. And he said, what's the cost of obtaining a new client? And I was like, wow, that's really personal. It probably is, but it's also a really good question. How much time and effort do you spend trying to get new clients? And think of that and think of the time that you have, how you can shift that into your podcast marketing. Don't add on something new with podcasting. Have this replace other things. Why? Because your podcast marketing can be out there in the world with your very, very effective voice. And actually, that's the end of the sentence, with your very effective voice, which studies have proven is way more impactful than just an image or just text or even the most clever of article. And I hate to say that because I love writing, but honestly, this is the lens to view your business podcast. Again, it is supporting your business. So it should be part of your business decisions, including your return on investments. We're going to revisit this later when we assess your ROI later in the webinar. Downloads, podcast downloads are not useless. They can tell you trends, and I wrote a whole blog post on it, and I wrote a whole thing, and I have graphs and things that explain it. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but because your small business podcast is most likely there to be generating leads for your business, downloads can tell you that people are listening. It can show you that more people are listening, but downloads are not the point. So viewing them, analyzing them is okay, but a better ROI is meeting your actual goal. What are some goal examples? Because I love specifics. Goal examples number one. Let's say your goal is to get more discovery calls. You could set a goal of 5 discovery calls per month from the podcast. You'd say that would be success, and you would track it. How would you track it? On your discovery call form, whatever that may be, whatever form you have that in, you would have a thing that says, "Where did you hear from me?" or "How did you find out about my business?" or something like that. And you could even list it: podcast, social media, LinkedIn, my newsletter, da, 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 da. If they check off podcast, you have a discovery call with them to keep track. Know that that came from that, and that marketing, I'm saying that a lot, and that the podcast marketing worked. Set a very clear goal. Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I have to pause for a second. Monica says, Monica Anderson, hi, Monica. You just changed my life. Light bulb. Thank you. Focus on the goal, not just download numbers. Yay! My sub goal in life is to get people to focus on more than downloads. So I'm really glad, Monica. I'm really, really glad. Okay, so that's one example. Another example, because I can't tell you what your ROI would be. I don't know your specific business, so you would need to be very, very clear on it. But here are some examples. Here's the second one. This is 2. A podcast goal is get FaceTime with leaders in the field. For example, you could say one podcast conversation either on their podcast or on yours. That should actually say their podcast or your podcast, not. Yeah. Anyway, there's a mistake. Happens. So let's say one podcast conversation per month. You'd say that would be success. And I know you're thinking one conversation isn't enough. Yes, it is. If your goal is to get in contact with a leader in your field and you have FaceTime with them, you're now in their sphere. All of the people that they interact with, whether you think about it or not, when you interact with them online in visible spaces like LinkedIn, they're now watching you. You now have an in to their people. So one conversation a month is actually really good. So that could be your ROI. So it really depends on your goal. Going back to your podcast why. Decision number 7, decide on your initial workflow. Okay, so here's a very simple workflow I would like you to try out. And the word promote is there intentionally many times. Okay, again, you want to start sharing your podcast from the beginning of the idea. So outline your episode, promote that. There's an idea that'll hit you during the outline, share it. Record the podcast, promote that. What promote that? Maybe share would be a better word in this situation. Something happened during the recording, share it. Edit the podcast or have someone else edit it. What was their impression of it if you have someone else do it? Share that. Write the show notes. Share something about that. Publish the freaking episode because it's time. You did a lot of work. Share something about that. So at every stage of the podcast production, you have content to share, not just what's in the podcast, although that can be part of it. If there's an amazing gem that sticks out while you're recording, write down the time, like the timestamp, because your recording software, it probably has a time on it. Just write down the time and go back to that time and take that clip. Talk about it. You can either use the quote, you can talk about what they said, your reaction to it, you can expand on it, you can write a blog post on it. You're the expert in this field. You know what's going on and different ideas. You can weave them all together and tell stories. So I would like you to entertain using this workflow. You can build and change it as you go. There are some episodes I do where I don't even are there episodes I do when I don't outline? Really short 5-minute ones, I'll have one idea and I'll just talk on that for 5 minutes. But usually I have at least a post-it outline. I don't script mine, but for some business podcasts, you might. Decision. Oh, a very important message. I have no idea if Picasso actually said this or not, but I love this quote. Good artists copy, great artists steal. Take the workflow of someone that you see doing this and try it on. If it works for you, keep it. If it doesn't work for you, it's too hectic or too detailed or too loosey-goosey. Love that phrase. Don't use it. Try something else. Here's something for you to try. A few years ago during International Podcast Day, Evo Terra, who had one of the first podcasts ever, seriously, he did a YouTube channel or a YouTube video. Sorry, he did a video for International Podcast Day on the plan that he had when he was back on the Bangkok podcast with Greg. And it is spreadsheet joy. If you are a spreadsheet person, you'll want to watch this. It was a really good, clean, simple Google Sheets spreadsheet extravaganza. Uh-oh. Matthew said, stealing is an interesting concept I've discovered in content creation over the last few months. Yeah. Stealing is a harsh word. I mean, nothing comes from nothing, right? I mean, everything's built on something. And clearly, if it's a complete and utter copy, then you want to give credit to someone. But if you're just taking the idea and making it your own, that's not stealing. That's just creative. So, quick recap of the decisions that you need to make before you start your small business podcast: your podcast why, podcast format, episode production schedule, use clear CTAs. Clear CTAs, just to add another note to that, is one of the few things I write word for word. Like I said, I usually just use a very quick outline, like 1 or 2 words per point, but CTAs are things that I write straight, every single word, because they're so hard to get clear and concise. And you really want to be specific and clear and about those. Anyway, marketing, set your ROIs. And number 7, decide on your workflow. Let's move on. The recording setup. Like I said, most people start here and they buy too much equipment. They buy the wrong equipment. And then they start obsessing over having the wrong equipment. And then they never actually get to the decisions and the creation, which is really sad because business podcasts can do a lot of outreach for you. So I'm going to make this as simple as possible. When I first used to do this section, I used to give so much information because I thought I'm going to give every option and I'm going to over-explain everything because people need to know. They need to have all of this choice to choose from. And this week, when I was sitting down with those slides, I just kept hitting delete, 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 because I honestly, the more people I help start a podcast, the more I realize that decision fatigue is one of the biggest obstacles to starting a small business podcast. Y'all don't have time for that. I'm going to give you specifics of basically my setup that I've used for years, which is super simple and effective. And if you like how my stuff sounds, you'll probably like how it sounds for you. So let's do this. And also another mindset note is that a good recording setup is an investment in money and time and face, because it is a business podcast. You do want to look good. If you're using your laptop mic, you're not going to look good. People aren't going to stick around. They're not going to trust you. You're going to be muted. Your voice is literally going to be not great. All right, so here it is. Someone recently said I was colorful, so I decided to make that a thing in my slides. And I love pictures over words when it comes to stuff like this. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to do that row first and then the second row. Microphone, Samson Q2U. I forgot. The boom arm I don't have for geographical moving reasons, but I am definitely getting one soon. I definitely recommend a boom arm. That way there's no sound. When anything moves on the desk that you're on, there's no sound. You can get the mic nice and close to you, which we'll talk about in a minute. All that kind of stuff. So the boom arm is top left. Samson Q2U is the next one. Super simple mic. I think it's $70 or $80 on Amazon nowadays. It changes all the time. The colorful things next to it is like this. You know those big things that people put in front of the mic for the ps, 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 and the sounds? Yeah, you don't need that. You might need that. I would experiment. I'd try these first because these are pop filters. They're not as intense as the big circles, but they work good enough. So if you try these and you still have sounds that are undesirable, then you can move to the big thing. But if you start with the big thing, you miss your face, especially if you're doing video or you're looking at your guest. If you have guests or a panel, if you're looking at them, it gets in the way. It totally gets in the way. So I prefer these. You might need the other depending on your speech habits, and there's nothing wrong with using the other one, but try these first. Next one are I have colorful earbuds in the thing, but just these. You don't need the gigantic headphones when you're recording. You absolutely positively do not. I know a lot of people do it because it's like, I look like a serious podcaster. I'm like, yeah, you look hot and I'm claustrophobic and that just makes me not want to watch you. It's your choice. If you prefer to have the big clunky things, go for it. But all you need is to stop the sound coming out of your computer. That's it. StreamYard is the platform that I'm using here. You can go live. You can put older videos that look like they're live, but they're not. You can record. You can have meetings. You can do all kinds of things with it. I think it's super versatile. I know there's a million different platforms and people fight on podcast forums every single day on which one's the best. And I don't care for those conversations. I think it depends on you, and I don't. I think StreamYard's also. Second row is what you're going to do after it's recorded. So the first row is what you need for recording. The second row is afterwards. I use Hindenburg to edit. I think it's very easy and it makes my stuff sound better than I can do on the rough and ready other kinds of things. The things that are free and are slightly more complicated, the things that are not free and super complicated. I tried all of them. If you go way back in my LinkedIn, you'll even see me doing like months where I'm switching from one software to another. It was a nightmare. I like Hindenburg. It's simple. It makes me sound good. Done. Google Drive. If you're sharing files, storing files, doing anything with files, use Google Drive. Simple. Buzzsprout is the podcast host I like the best. They're super easy. They're on their stuff. They share information. They have opportunities for podcasters. They're adding features that matter. Blah, blah, blah. LinkedIn. It's the social media that you need the most as a small business person. And Substack for your newsletter, the easiest newsletter platform ever. I've tried a ton of them. This is by far the easiest. And it's easy to monetize if you want to do that kind of thing. Okay. So, your tech stack for two people is obviously get two mics, two boom arms, more of these probably. You probably need an interface. I find the Scarlett i2i is very easy to use. That's not what's in the picture. What I'm showing you in the picture is the backside of this Samsung Q2U mic. I'm showing you because I want you to know that this mic you can plug it into your computer with a USB cable. You can also use an XLR cable, which is the 3 at the bottom in the picture. You can use that to plug into an interface where you can plug in two mics, two or more, depending on the interface. You can use that together. So this mic is versatile to use when you're recording solo, as well as when you have multiple of them and recording with many people. Yes. And Monica says, I use Altitude to edit. It has a lot of good features. Yes, it is another one. Like I said, there's so many different ones. It is a matter of testing them out. A lot of them have free trials. So try that if you want to, if you have the time. And that is another one that you can certainly try. If you're going to do things in person, blasphemous, says the woman who does all of her recordings online. If you do anything in person, I've heard very good things about the Zoom. I forget what number they're up to now. It's Zoom H something something. There's so many of them. Or the Rodecaster Pro. I've heard very good things about both of those. Why Zoom sucks for podcasts. Okay, for business podcasts. Zoom is amazing, but it compresses voices so that many people can be in a room or in a virtual room together. Those compressed voices, when you only have one or two voices, sound really, I don't want to say tinny because that's not the right word. It doesn't sound full. So if you want to sound like you in your podcast, I would use anything else other than Zoom. I love StreamYard. You could use, I think Alitu records now too, right, Monica? You can use Alitu, you can use Clean Feed, you can use Zencaster. There's a lot of different ones. But for Zoom, it's going to compress all of your voices, and there's no way to get back what Zoom doesn't record. No way. It's just gone. Like part of your voice is literally gone. That's why. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. What would we do without Zoom, right? But it's not great for this purpose. Spotify for podcasters, which used to be called Anchor. I think my coffee picture says it all. As a business person, do you want to invest your time and money into something that's free, which means it's using you as the product, right? I mean, honestly, when you pay for a service, you're more likely to have some sort of control. They have the ability to keep the product going. I know Spotify's not going to go under anytime soon, but who knows how long they're going to keep that free service. I mean, Anchor, yeah, it's just too risky. It's too risky. You don't want to have to think about, oh my gosh, because this happens all the time. Podcast hosts go down, they shut down certain parts of their company that are the podcast hosts, and other keep going, and then people have to scramble and find a new podcast host. I just would prefer not to do that. Again, you should be focused on your business, not on switching podcast hosts. And yes, it looks like Ella2 also records. Great. Mic technique for Samson Q2U. Get close. Can you see how close I am? I literally, when I do mic consults with my clients, I literally tell them to do like a European kiss, except don't keep moving back and forth. Just literally that close. I sometimes find lipstick on my mic cover. You don't have to get that close, but seriously, do it close and do a test beforehand. Test it out and say, okay, so now I'm 2 fingers away from the mic. Now I'm 1 finger away from the mic. Now I'm right up to the mic. This is the right side. This is the left side. I'm right in front of it, which you shouldn't do with this mic because that captures icky sounds you don't want. Do things like that, record it, listen back. So when you say what you're doing, when you listen back, you can actually see it. Or you can record video and listen back too. It depends on if you're doing an audio or video podcast, so on and so forth. Also, when you start recording, if there's somebody on the line with you, you can say, tell me in the chat room, can you hear this sound? Can I get a yes or no in the chat room? Yay, Matthew says yep. Yeah. So that's a quick way to know that the recording software is picking up your mic, not your laptop mic. You can also check your settings, but I like to do both to make sure that it's recording this, not my laptop, because laptop mics are awful. I don't know why, but even cell phones, even like basic cell phones, have better sound than laptop mics. Suddenly ASMR. Hey, hi, Tony. Yeah, I know. I should do the rest ASMR style. No, I shouldn't. Top 3 biggest audio mistakes. 1, not wearing headphones or earbuds. Lots of echo. Yuck. 2, don't do a mic test. Picking up your laptop mic. Again, yuck, because I'm going for advanced language right now. 3, ignoring room environment. Soft surfaces and cloth are your friend. I have a few episodes on echo in the Coffee Like Media podcast, especially the first 30 days. I had a bunch of podcast editor guests come on with me, and we described all kinds of things you can do to your environment to make up for tall ceilings. Windows are the worst. I love windows and I love the sun, but they are the worst for reverberation. There's lots you can do. So feel free to check that out. Coffee Like Media is the name of the podcast. I don't know if you can see in the bottom of that picture, there's 2 mics. There's an orange mic and a black mic in the back. My arrows aren't quite going to them, but that is a sound fort. I was recording with Mel and Dave of it's a good travel book podcast that I can't think of the name of right now. Oh, man. Anyway, I was recording with them, and I said, I love your sound for it. It's amazing. Can I take a picture?" And they said, "Yeah, but wait, let us do this." And they ducked down to show me. So that they literally had like a external shell, I think from IKEA, and they put a soundproof like uh, what's it called? Blanket over it, and then they got into it. You don't have to do that. You can put things around you. It depends on how echoey your environment is. Some people record in closets if they're just doing audio because the cloth in the closet picks or gets rid of some of the echo. Uh, I accidentally have a lot of boxes around me right now because I just recently moved, and they're absorbing some of the echo in this very empty apartment. So there's a lot of things you can do. Recap of the recording setup. A good recording setup is an investment. And if you have questions, now's a good time to put them in the chat room, please. A good recording setup is an investment. I have starting tech stacks that you can use to just go, I'm going to do this at first and see if I like it and go from there. I talked about Zoom and Spotify for podcasting, mic techniques for the Samson Q2U, which also work for any dynamic microphones. I can't talk about the condensers, especially the Blue Yeti is a whole other creature, and it's not good in an untreated room. So if you're not in a studio, I wouldn't touch a Blue Yeti. It's a great mic for a treated room. But dynamic mics like the Samson Q2U and the ATR 2100. Is that right? Man, I haven't said that in a while. Yeah, there's a lot of dynamic mics that are really, really good. I would go with those. Yeah. And then the top mistakes. Sharing part 3, sharing your podcast in all the places. My favorite part. That's not true. I actually love the editing part, but that's not for today. So a lot of people ask the question, where should I put my podcast? Should I put it on Apple Podcasts? Should I put it on Spotify? What should I do? The answer is yes to every single one that's out there. And you only have to do this one time. Now, obviously, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher's no more. It's going away this week. Oh, I actually think today's the day it's going away. It was like the 24th or 26th. And Podcast Index is also a very big one. So those are the big ones. And then the ones over to the right are some other ones that definitely have listeners using them. And you only have to list or claim, depending on the verbiage in that platform, your podcast once. You do it at the beginning and it's done. If you are listening to this and you already started your podcast and you're like, oh, I don't think I'm on those, you can still add it. There's no deadline to when you can start it. But if you get your podcast on there from the beginning, then anybody on that platform can find you. Again, I have links in the slides, and Pod News has a really good page of like all of the places that you can list your podcast. Be searchable. SEO and podcasts are the episode titles. Put the keywords first. Unless you have a massive celebrity, then they become a keyword. You can put them first. If you want to put names in your podcast titles, that's fine, but only put the name first if they're a celebrity. If it's anybody else, put the keyword. When people are searching online or especially on a podcast app, you only have about 3 or 4 words, and they're scrolling through many, many, many episodes. So if they don't see the keywords they're looking for, they'll just scroll past. Put the keywords first. Transcripts are being used more and more online these days. And it's going to be more and more in the future as well, probably. So if you have transcripts available, they will be crawled and they will be searched and they will probably, indexed? What other verbs can I use for that? They will be useful. It's also, please don't get me wrong, they're also really important for inclusion so that people that can't hear your podcast can also read the content. But it's also really good for being found. Keywords that use keywords that your clients use, not industry jargon. This was a really big problem I had when I started my first business podcast. I was using words that like the behind the scenes podcast editors were using, and no clients were finding me because they were searching for how do I start a podcast. I was doing things with how to reduce reverberation or what's the best plugin to use for plosives. Nobody was searching for that. They might have meant that, but that's not the words they were using. So you have to use the words that your clients are using. Okay, not the behind the scene words. You can be all jargony with your peeps, but don't do that with your titles and your show notes and things. You want to be relatable and understandable, and you want people to find you. And to find you, you have to be using the words that they use. Be where you are. Promote where you are already. I always think that LinkedIn is good for business folks because it's basically a business platform, and people, it's just the scene is already set, right? But if you're not on LinkedIn, it might take some time to gain some momentum there. So maybe post where you already are. You don't have to post everywhere, but be where you are. Be in the groups if you're in any business groups that you're in. Also, follow the rules of the group. But if there's a day when there's a lot of business groups I'm in where they say, okay, today's the day we're sharing your latest product or promotion or anything. And those are the days you can say, hey, I have this new podcast episode, or I have this new course, or I have this new whatever. But you can share your podcast episodes in those spaces you already are. A lot of people are in groups and think they have to go to different kinds of groups or places online to promote their podcast. And it's just not true. You already have a persona where you are online. Be in those places. That's where you should start promoting. And then build up your LinkedIn profile. Beginning marketing plan. Let's say this takes less than 1 hour a week, because I think it can. Let's say you do one LinkedIn post per week on how it's going. You're building up the podcast, you're planning, you're recording, a few sentences, a link to your newsletter, a photo or video of the planning process. I've taken so many pictures of like my really rough outlines of things. And honestly, folks, it surprises me. It surprises me every time how many people resonate and comment on a really sloppy, like paper outline. And they're like, ask questions and they comment, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, wow, I thought somebody would say your handwriting sucks, but no. Like, people love process posts. So you've got the one LinkedIn post, then do one newsletter issue. It doesn't have to be long, can just be a few sentences, as long as you lead with value. Give them a little bit of value and share a little bit about your podcast. Update your website to make space for the podcast. Do this every week that you're planning the podcast. And by the time the podcast comes out, you don't have to do that last minute scramble of, I have to put the podcast on my website, because you already have it there. Add the podcast link to all of your social profiles. You don't have to always mention your podcast. You definitely don't want to drop the link everywhere, because that's annoying and spammy. What you can do is be part of conversations online. You can be social online, and you can lead people to your profile by being an interested person in your content area in that social space. And if people like you, they'll go to your profile. If your podcast is in your profile, they're more likely to listen. Now, let's say after your podcast is out, you want to change your marketing plan. Again, these are suggestions. You can do anything you want with this, but I like to give a template and then have people make it their own afterwards. So pick 3 different platforms. For example, once a week, post a 1-minute video on LinkedIn, a clip or a moment about the episode, anything like that. Twice a month, newsletter issue. So you've gone from weekly newsletters to twice a month. If you're doing a podcast episode twice a month, you can do episode, newsletter issue, episode, newsletter issue. So you're doing something weekly, but you are repurposing the podcast episode on the off weeks, and you're reminding them. I promise you, if you do this, you will see a spike, not just when the episode comes out, but when the newsletter that references the episode and provides more value on it, when that comes out, you'll also get a spike. So instead of 2 spikes with 2 episodes, you'll get 4, because you're using the newsletter. Once a month, create a 5-minute video based on one of the LinkedIn videos that you made. Expand on your ideas, share resources, lead with value. Once a month, share a value-driven moment from the latest podcast. There's so much that is going on in the episode as well as behind the scenes during the creation of it. You have so much to share, and people that would be in your content space watching what you're doing would love to hear it. So share it. So you've got a newsletter, which is text. You've got a video, which is video, obviously. So you've got text, video, and audio. So you're reaching people in the kinds of places they like to consume content. If you only produce audio, you're only going to get potential leads from people that like audio. I love audio, but people like different things. So meet them where they are. I have a lot of different promotion ideas. One more I'll give you that is in my promotions course that I did in the last webinar is in your signature of your email, as you can see at the bottom of that one. I'm not going to point right at the bottom of that one. Just follow the arrow. Every week I change it out and I repurpose a podcast episode and I put a little teaser. Every week I change it out. I put it in my calendar to remind myself to change it. And every week I see a little boom, boom, boom. That's how in the beginning I mentioned that just repurposing my podcast over since May, the last time I put out an episode, got that big thing because I'm repurposing the episodes more. And this is one of the ways that I'm doing that. In your email signature. It's a vacation request, not vacation request, vacation notification. Again, in Gumroad, I have that. Let me put that here for you. I have a whole bunch of these webinars on different things on YouTube and newsletters and all of the different 360 marketing stuff that I like to do with podcasts. Okay, subscribe to our newsletter, coffeelike.substack.com, new tips every week. Okay, so more promotion tasks you can do. Episode swaps, you have someone in a similar content category as you, and you literally swap episodes. You play their podcast episode, they play yours, put a little intro on it explaining why you're playing it, and then boom, you're done. Be a guest on other podcasts. You could do promo swaps, the promo or trailer for your podcast. You can put that onto somebody else's podcast. You can swap promos with another business podcaster or other podcaster if you think their audience aligns with who you're talking to, who you want as your client, then you can do that. You can make a Spotify playlist, put one of your episodes in there. You can do a live event or a live recording. There's so many. And I think I've already touched on repurposing quite a bit. You can repurpose old episodes, you can repurpose new episodes, you can constantly be using your content over and over and over in a way that is not spammy. There's a lot of value. Just use different parts of it and make sure that the value part of it is clear and it's not spammy. It's useful. What you're making is useful. That's why you're making it. So use it. Okay, part 4. Okay, we're going to do this. The podcast ROI. We talked about it at the beginning. When? I'd give it at least 6 months. Honestly, it takes some time. It depends on where you're putting the information. It depends on how much exposure you already have, all of those factors. But I would say give it at least 6 months to see big difference. At least. Why? Because why do you need to care about your podcast ROI? Because we talked about it before. Business expenses should be evaluated. This is no different. The metrics, I love this. I heard this recently and it really stuck with me. The metrics should match the goal. Remember we talked about your podcast why? Your podcast why should match the goal. We talked about the examples of the podcast ROI at the beginning. They should match what you're doing. If it was that one conversation with a leader, then that's what your goal is. Then stick to that. Wait, where's the monetization information? Like I said before, small business podcasts usually don't make tons of money from sponsorships. So they make money from lead generation. Or when they start producing bigger content like courses and paid webinars and things like that, you can make money from that. Most small business owners do not make money from the podcast itself, and that's fine. Because honestly, the other things I just mentioned are much more of passive income once you do the work on creating them. Any final questions about anything that we went over? Wow, 30 seconds to go. That's timing. So, yeah, any final questions or comments about any of the stuff we talked about today? The decision questions, the recording setups, the return on investment, the outsourcing information and lists. I actually didn't add to this. I need to add that. And after, again, if you want the slides, just email me and I'll send them to you with that information. How to record interviews remotely. Ah, Natalie wants to know how to record interviews remotely. I use StreamYard, the platform that we're on here. There was somebody else in here that was using Alitu. You can use CleanFeed. There's a lot of options. Depends on your budget, your setup, your internet. There's a lot of factors. Yeah. Oh, Tony, thank you. Thank you. Tell you what, Natalie, if you want to email me that question, I can give you a little more information and we can hone in on one that's good for you. Let's do that. Oh, right. And Zencaster. Thank you, Tony. Tony reminded me of Zencaster. That's a good one. Okay. And right. And we're good. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.